pigeons are out today with their suits on. And I just got through cleaning out the cages here. Really freshening them up since we got back. And usually when I let Larry out over here, Georgie Girl goes crazy wanting to get out. But today she's just sitting there guarding her egg. So I wonder if something is going to be happening pretty soon. She had the egg a couple of days before we went on the trip. And I don't know that she was incubating it, but she might have been. She likes to run off the nest when somebody comes in the room. She runs off, goes to the other corner of the cage there, and I gotta clean her out right now. But right now she's not running off the egg. So I said it might be some kind of a thing like a decoy. You know how killdeer will run off the nest and they'll put their one wing down like it's injured or broken to lure any predators away from the nest. Well, I don't know that pigeons do that. I didn't ever read about it, but Georgie does. She runs off. Now today's the first day she's not running off the nest when I come in. So maybe something's going on here. I'm not sure exactly when she started incubating it, so I'm not sure how many days it has been that she's been on it, but the egg is completely opaque. So there's something is taking up the whole space in there. Because she won't get off the nest voluntarily, I'm kind of working around it. I tore the newspaper and left a little piece under her, and I'm just going to work on wiping this down and cleaning this up. And you can just stay right there. And we'll get some new paper. And I won't bother you, Georgie. That's Miss Georgie. Hello, sweetie girl. Another flock dynamic that's going to change. And with every bird you get, no matter what you have, it can be parakeets. You add another bird, so pigeons, parakeets, whatever, it changes the whole dynamic of the flock. And in the flock there are birds that are more aggressive and birds that are more passive. And then if you have pairs of birds like her and Larry are a pair, although they don't seem to want to live in the same cage. Now if there's a chick that hatches out here, and I have to stress, this is going to be the only chick, because this was a mistake I made. I forgot to take and switch the eggs right before we left. And she lays 2 eggs, and I've always switched them out and not let them develop. But I forgot about it completely. And then once I was on the trip, I didn't even think of it, that she was sitting on real eggs instead of wooden eggs. But another thing is Crumb, who was a pigeon that's a downed racing pigeon at the local, well, it wasn't a local Humane Society. I had to drive about 30 miles to get to it, but Crumb is waiting for a vet check to make sure that he's got no parasites, and then he's going to join the pigeon area here in this bottom cage, so I have to get that taken care of. And it's rather low. It's right underneath it's right underneath Georgie Girl's cage. So I gotta get that cleaned out too eventually. And I want to raise these cages up a little bit because that other one is really low to the ground. So what's going on with your egg, my dear? Huh? She won't get off it now. So maybe we're coming to the hatching stage here. Now I took a rag and I scrubbed out the cage just the best I could with a little bit of detergent and then a cloth to wipe it down. And she has not budged, even though the cage was, being moved around a bit and the tray was being agitated. How you doing? Are you hiding a chick under there? I don't know what she's got under there, but I'm assuming it's still the egg. Just talking about pigeons and the stupidity of people. I sometimes say, like, why do people do this? Why do people do that? Well, let me tell you a quick story. Well, these guys are out over here. Larry's way up there. About when I was in high school, a kid I knew bought 2 pigeons at our local rural farmers market. And I had one, he gave me one, he kept one. And his idea was we'd switch them off and they would fly from house to house carrying messages, which was really stupid. And I said, they're not going to do that. But this kid insisted on buying 2 pigeons. Well, his pigeon he had out in a cage in the yard, and he opened the door one time. This is just a few days later, and the pigeon got out and flew away. And hopefully that pigeon flew back to its home, wherever the person was that had pigeons. Hope he got back safely. Now the pigeon I had, because we didn't know anything about pigeons, you know, there was no internet and my family wasn't really into looking things up about how to take care of things. So I had the pigeon outside in a tiny cage too. It was kind of hanging from a tree, and it was actually in some kind of a quick made up chicken wire cage. And I didn't know what to do with this pigeon. I didn't know you could bring a pigeon in the house. I mean, of course you can, but it didn't occur to me, and it never occurred to my parents, like, why don't you just bring them in the house and we'll build them a cage and you can have them in your room, you know, and let her out. It was a female. And I had this pigeon, and I didn't know what to do with it because I felt sorry for it sitting outside alone in a cage. Not to mention predators could get it. I think I brought the whole cage in at night. I can't even remember. This was way back in the 1980s. And then my dad said, I know a guy whose hobby is raising homing pigeons, and he didn't raise the pigeons, but he would have these pigeons in a loft above his garage, and I suppose he'd let them out and they'd fly and come back into the loft again. But some pigeons were not let out. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but we went there and took the pigeon there, and it was this big loft thing where you could walk into it like an attic almost above the garage. And gave him the pigeon, and he looked at it and said, it's a young female. He said she'll just live her life out here in this loft. Well, you know, as a child, as a kid, I didn't have much to say about anything. I was not much allowed to say much about anything. But I really wish I would have kept that pigeon and kept it as a house pet. And now, you know, one good thing about the internet is you can look things up and see a lot of information that you wouldn't think of, especially when you're younger. That's just a short story, and I still think about that pigeon today and hope she had a decent life there, locked up in that loft. But I like having the pigeons in the house. They're messy, you gotta clean a lot, they're dusty, you know, when they're molting, the feathers are all over. So if you're gonna get a pigeon and have it indoors, be ready to do cleaning. And another thing is, if you want just one pigeon, probably a male pigeon is a good deal, because the male pigeon, though they like to wrestle and fight with you, they seem to be more where they will interact with a person than the females. That's just my experience. The females don't interact, the males do interact. Maybe they see you as another pigeon rival and they're going to come land on your shoulder and try to fight with you. But a pigeon is a pretty nice pet. It's not real loud, it's not screaming like a parrot, and they don't pull their feathers out. They don't get super lonely like parrots do, where you have to constantly be entertaining them. So, you know, a pigeon, you can go to work, you come home, let the pigeon out, have the pigeon out a few hours, put the little pigeon pants on, let them take a bath once a week, and the pigeon's happy just interacting with you. And during the day, he's okay in his cage. As long as he gets out and gets some time out every day or almost every day. So pigeon is a good pet to have. but they do live, they can live to be 18 to 20 years old. Now that's kind of rare, but they can. Okay, well, I'd like to see what's under you. What are you hiding? Are you on that egg? Look at her, she won't move. She won't move at all. Hi. You got a baby under there, or do you have just an egg? Can I just feel? I wonder what's going on here. Let's see. What's going on here, huh? You hiding the egg yet? No, she's still got the egg. She's still on the egg, but she will not budge. Okay, and there she is all cleaned out here in her cage. Got fresh water. She's got grit over here. It's important. Very important that your pigeon has grit available. This is all oyster shell grit, and it's important not to use just sand or something like that. This is grit that will dissolve in the acids in a stomach or a gizzard of a bird, and it provides them also with a little extra calcium. And this is just chicken grit that you can buy or order, and I smash some of it up with a hammer to make it. You put it between two cloths, get on some cement like in a basement or a driveway or something, put it between two pieces of cloth and get a hammer and kind of smash it up into smaller pieces for the pigeons. And this is the kind of grit that will not clog up. And you know, if you give a bird's little stones that are not the kind of stone that can dissolve, they can get too many of those inside of them, and it can actually cause an impaction where it will clog up and kill the bird. So that's why it's important to use something like oyster shell grit. Now people say, well, why? How about in the wild? How come the birds don't die of that in the wild? Well, you know, wild birds don't live very long. If they live for 2 years, that's a long time, because they get sick, they get injured, they get hurt by or killed by predators. So you never can compare domestic animals to wild animals and say, well, why don't the wild animals have this problem? Well, wild animals don't live long enough to have these problems. You know, you're not going to find wild animals that are very old. Here's Larry. Oh, Larry, he's up there eating. How you doing, Larry? He's in Wabi's cage. He's going to raid her. He raids her food bowl and picks out all the split peas. He says, look at my pigeon pants. Tropical pigeon pants, Larry. And since I don't want anyone bothering Georgie Girl and she's not coming out, I'm just going to close her in there so nobody disturbs her on her egg. I just picked this up at the thrift store for $1.50. It's one of those cheese things that are the gift cheese spreads for the holidays, and people give them away. It's got the inside here. Somebody must have had it for a while and used it because this is all brittle. That's the rubber seal. Let's get that out of there. And I'm just going to take that right off, because that comes off. We don't need that. It's half off the tag from Goodwill, and it's a stoneware crock. Now this is a really good thing to use for a pigeon for their seed, because they can't really knock it over. They have to put their head down in it. Now look how high it is. It's about as high almost as my hand, and that's about the right height, about like that, as high as your hand. And I like to use something heavy. For some of the pigeons I have big heavy mugs, also from the thrift store. But I thought I'd get this for Crumb, because he keeps dumping the little dish that I have in there. Crumb is still being isolated in the dining room here. I'm just going to put a little bit of food in. I don't put too much in, because then they have their favorites. So just on the bottom each day. You don't want it to be too tall, but about the size of your hand sitting on its side. And that's just about the right size for him to reach in and eat. But he won't be able to throw the seeds out as much when I have a little tiny glass bowl in there. Come on over and try this, Crumb. I gotta show him. Look at. attention there. There's seeds in there, sweetheart, okay? You're going to the vet this week, and then you're going to be able to come by the other birds again. As soon as you're clear of any parasitic infections, we have to check that out first. How you doing, sweetie? He does a bob. When I talk to him, he bobs his head. Hey, sweetie. Hi, sweetie. And he only does that when I'm talking to him. Otherwise, if I sit in here and I be quiet, he won't bob his head. So, what you doing? I'm talking to you and you're bobbing. He says, I'm bobbing at you, Ma. What does that mean, Crumb? Does that mean you're a boy or a girl, or what does it mean? You want to look in there? There's seeds in there. Okay, I'm going to leave him here and let him check out this new seed holder. Right? Bob your head. Ooh. Bob your head. Bob your head. What does that mean, Crumb?